Hey guys, what's up? This is Andrew here, and welcome back to yet another video. Now, today, I'm gonna be making a different video. It's more like a trip down memory lane because I'm going to be revisiting and looking back on a franchise that was probably the first franchise that I really liked and was the first fandom I was ever a part of. And as I recently came across them looking at my old files, and I realized that this was a video back then when my channel was very small that I wanted to make. And you know what? I thought, let's bring what I wanted to do, and that is rank all the Alpha and Omega Alpha and Omega movies from worst to best. Now, I know for a fact that this is not a franchise that too many people love out there, and it is trust me, it is a franchise that has been criticized so much by the public. And to be honest, some of its criticism is fair, but at the same time, I think it's one of those slightly overhated franchises, if you know what I mean. But yeah, I'm gonna be ranking every single Alpha and Omega movie from worst to best, and let's get into it. Now, starting off with number 8, and before I say what it is, I just want to say there are a couple of movies from the 8 ones on this list that really made me question if it was worth it to be a fan anymore. Because, of course, starting with number 8, and this might not be too much of a surprise if any of you have seen all 8 Alpha and Omega movies, but in number 8, which is the worst movie, I've gone for Alpha and Omega 6 Dino Digs. So, apparently from what I heard that this movie was made basically to take advantage of the sudden popularity trend that Land Before Time was getting around that time, and I think they wanted to capitalize on that popularity with a dinosaur movie. But let me just say, this movie, really, I felt like the writers put almost zero effort into. So, before you guys, for you guys that are confused, I'm gonna be explaining the plot of this movie. So basically, 65 million years ago, there were 2 dinosaurs that got trapped and buried because of some form of meteor strike. And 65 million years later, there are humans who want to dig up that grounds, which is called Sacred Grounds. Original name, trust me. And then apparently when a certain source of light goes through and touches the skeleton of one of the dinosaurs, it brings them back to life. And basically, it brought a purple dinosaur named Amy back to life. And basically she ended up meeting Kate and Humphrey's three wolf pups, which is Stinky, Claudette, and Runt. And basically, together, along with Kate and Humphrey, they will try by any means to stop the human diggers from digging the sacred grounds any further and getting towards a dangerous T-Rex. So, yeah, that is basically the plot of this 44-minute movie. And let me tell you, this is the first movie that was from the franchise that was very hard for me to find any level of enjoyment in. Because, if I'm being honest, I can't find almost one thing that would make me wanna go back and rewatch this movie. The comedy was not great. The storytelling had a lot of plot holes and also a lot of confusing things and timelines. The the new characters that were introduced in this were either boring or just unlikable, and there were a lot of cringe moments throughout this movie, such as that dance sequence that was near the end of the movie and also somewhere in the middle. There was only one moment throughout the movie that made me chuckle, and that was, of course, Humphrey's encounter with two caribou named Marge and Donna. But really, apart from that, I really did not have much enjoyment. And honestly, this is a movie that I would not miss going back seeing. And anyway, I don't want to really give this movie much more attention, so let's go to the next one. Now, in number 7, also known as the second worst movie in this franchise, is the final movie of this franchise, Alpha and Omega 8: Journey to Bear Kingdom. Now, the difference in my opinion, on what separates the 8th movie from the 6th one is at least there were some positives to take away from this movie. But there were still a lot of problems. There was a huge inconsistency with the plot line with bears. Because in case you guys don't know, for the Alpha and Omega storyline, basically, in the first movie, bears were basically made to seem like they were mindless creatures who would attack anyone. Then, in the second movie, they were given a bit more understanding and communicating instead of just going full attack. And then, in the third movie, it went back to what it was like in the first movie. And it also stayed like that for the 7th movie. But then in the 8th movie, they then decided to revert and go back to how the bears behaved in the second movie. But not only that, apparently we had 7 movies in the franchise up until that point, and we never heard of a bear kingdom or bear loyalty, and now all of a sudden this was being brought up? Is it? It just really does not make any sense. But anyway, basically the plot of this movie was that the Queen Bear and Princess Canyu were visiting the Eastern Forest for some kind of ceremony or celebration. But they end up getting attacked by rogue wolves, and basically Kate, Humphrey, and their pups want to help uh, the Princess Canyu and the Queen Bear deal with them. And apparently there are also some traders among the bears who are trying to work against them and team up with the rogue wolves. And basically it's up to the Western Pack, Kate and Humphrey, and their pups to basically stop the rogue wolves and the trader bears from trying to take over the bear kingdom and basically prevent them from getting control over the water. And I'm like, hello? Is that water special? Like they said that this movie franchise is supposed to be based around or in Canada. Canada does not have a problem with water in wildlife, so it cannot be a problem for that. There cannot be a shortage of water. So what makes the water special? That was something that was never explained about in this movie and never really got an answer to. And yeah, there were a lot of confusing things that, again, as I said, did not add up. And once again, the comedy also was not too great, although it was slightly better than what the sixth movie gave, but still not great. But I will say the few positives that we got from this movie was at least the battle scene was decent. And also it was pretty nice to see some OG characters make some cameos, although I was hoping they would make more than just cameos and actually at least have a few lines. Oh, and also another reason why I'm putting this movie so low on the list is because it poorly handled Brent, Agnes, and Fleet's interactions. Like, what was the point in bringing them into this movie if they basically weren't going to add anything to the plot? I feel like they were only included in that movie because of fan service. They literally did not do anything else. And I say fan service, but I know a lot of Alpha and Omega fans aren't major fans of Brent and Agnes. So yeah, not sure what they wanted to do with them. Maybe they did plan to use them, but ended up use them for something more, but ended up scrapping them. But yeah, whatever it is, it's still not a great movie, and it's honestly one that I also wouldn't mind not seeing again either. But I will say, the good news about this is it can only get better from here, folks. So, let's now go to number 6. in my favorite Alpha and Omega movies list, I have gone for Alpha and Omega 7, The Big Furries. Nice pun there. Not seriously. Who thought this would be a good idea for a movie title? Thank goodness the movie is at least better than its title. But I will say, even though I didn't think this was a bad movie, the reason why it's still pretty low on this list is because I felt like they tried to copy what worked in the second Alpha and Omega movie and tried to make something a little bit different. So basically, what the plot is that Kate and Humphrey are trapped inside a cave while looking for food or caribou to hunt, and their pups, Stinky, Claudette, and Runt, got worried and decided to take matters into their own paws and go into that snow blizzard and try to find their parents. On the way there, they ended up running into some of their old friends, Brent and Agnes, which I talked about before. And in case you guys didn't know, Brent is a bear cub and Agnes is a porcupine. I think you should see them on the DVD cover right now. But yeah, and basically, while they are trying to find, rescue, or look for their parents, they encounter the rogue wolf leader and one of his hench dogs who is trying to get revenge on them for basically what happened in the second movie, which divided King's pack, basically, and he wanted to dish it out and get revenge on them. So basically, yeah, that's the plot, and like I said, it's not a bad storyline. Like, on the surface, this actually looks like something that could be very good. Only issue with it is I didn't find this as enjoyable as the second movie, which you'll see later where I ranked this. But yeah, I didn't enjoy this as much as the second movie did, which was basically another winter themed one. But yeah. So the comedy, I don't feel like there was too much comedy in this movie, so I didn't really have too many laughs. The action sequences were pretty cool, and I do like that there were quite a few close calls for each of the characters being in danger. But yeah, this is a movie that I won't mind rewatching, but I'm not sure if I would be too eager to rewatch it either. Like, it's okay, I would say. It's definitely the best sequel that Splash Entertainment made, because for you guys that don't know, the first 5 Alpha and Omega movies were made by Crest Animations, and the last 3, which is 6, 7, and 8, were all made by Splash Entertainment. So, in terms of Splash Entertainment sequels, this was the best one out of the lot. But I still, yeah, like it's okay, but it's not a great movie, if I'm being honest. Now, we're going to number 5. We're in the Crest Animation sequels now. Now, for number 5, we are going for Alpha and Omega 3, The Great Wolf Games. Now, this is the first Alpha and Omega movie on this list that I would be interested in rewatching. That is Alpha and Omega 3, The Great Wolf Games. Now, this movie, although like all other Alpha and Omega movies, did have problems, but I feel like this time the good was almost equal with the bad stuff we got from this movie, which is why I can't really put this anywhere lower on the list. So basically, what the plot of this movie is basically Stinky, Claudette, and Runt, Kate and Humphrey's pups. They were practicing running, and basically they found out that there is a competition called the Great Wolf Games, and for the past few years, the Western Pack has not participated in those events until, of course, the rules for the games being for all critters or all creatures got put back. But Stinky, Claudette, and Runt managed to convince the Western Pack, and also they managed to convince Humphrey to be their coach. And this was where they met Brent and Agnes, as I told you, the bear cub and porcupine, to join their team and compete against all the other packs in these games. So yeah, that is basically the plot of the third movie. And I want to say that I think this movie could have been a lot better if they did a few things differently. Because when you hear a title like The Great Wolf Games, it immediately springs to your mind a variety of challenges or activities for the wolves to try to compete in order to see what their strengths and weaknesses are. But in this one, it felt like the only part of this competition was running, and who could be the fastest to get from one field to another, or something like that, and a few mountain rock obstacles, which we only got a few seconds of screen time for, and that was pretty much it. There was no other activities for the wolf juniors or other critters to test their strengths, like for example hunting or even swimming. Like, there were no other really activities to test what their strengths would be, and it was pretty much just one event the whole way through, which I think that was probably the biggest problem when it came to this movie. because I just want to bring something up. At least when it came to the My Little Pony franchise, when they made an episode that was basically dedicated to Olympic events, basically like this movie, they at least had a variety of challenges to test the Pegasi with their strengths and weaknesses. Here, like I said, it seems like it's just one event or one activity. I will say the one thing in my opinion that saved this movie from being less than mid was Fleet and Claudette's adorable interactions. And I will say as well, in this movie, there is also a side, I guess, a side romance plot between Fleet and Claudette. And in case you guys don't know, Fleet is one of the wolf pups who is part of the Northern Pack. So yeah, I would say that if it wasn't for Fleet and Claudette's adorable interactions, then this movie probably would have fallen lower than where I put Alpha and Omega 7. But because of that, I think that's what made it just edge out the 7th movie for me. Anyways, now we are on to the 4th best movie of the franchise, and it is Alpha and Omega 2: A Holiday Adventure. Now, this is, in my opinion, the first movie on this list that we've come to so far where I think it's been above mid. Like, this is actually, in my opinion, very solid. This is actually a very solid movie, in my opinion. So basically, in this movie, we get introduced to Kate and Humphrey's 3 new wolf pups, Stinky, Claudette, and Runt. And basically, what their youngest pup or cub, Runt, ends up going missing. And they soon find out that he was actually kidnapped by rogue wolves. And basically, Kate and Humphrey, the rest of their wolf pups, Stinky and Claudette, and the rest of the Western Pack basically have to search for where the rogue wolves are, and basically try to get Runt back, which won't be easy because apparently the rogue wolves also at that time wanted to start a war with the Western Pack. So yeah, that is basically the plot of the second movie. And I will say, the comedy was great in this one. I did have quite a lot of chuckles from this one, and like I said, was pretty solid. I also found that there were a lot of close calls, and the action sequences were pretty cool. And like I said, I found this movie to be pretty enjoyable. And this is certainly a movie that I would, from time to time, maybe give it another watch. Because, like I said, I found this to be enjoyable, and the interactions between all of the characters here was actually quite funny, not gonna lie. The comedy part is always a big strength when it comes to the Alpha and Omega franchise, in my opinion. The animation might not be a strong point because there are definitely throughout the franchise and this movie as well a few animation errors here and there, but if a story or comedy inside that movie is greater, then I don't mind a few animation botches or something like that. But yeah, I found this to be pretty entertaining movie. Now, we're in the top 3 territory. The third best Alpha and Omega movie, in my opinion, is Alpha and Omega 4, The Legend of the Sawtooth Cave, or aka the Alpha and Omega Halloween movie of this franchise. Now, I would say, in terms of story-wise and plot, this might be one of the best Alpha and Omega movies that were made, and some would even argue that this is the second best or even best Alpha and Omega movie from this lot. But it's number 3 for me on this list. So basically, what the plot is apparently a few years ago, like I would roughly estimate maybe 15 to 20 years ago, there was a disabled wolf pup who was named Daria, and apparently her pack did not at that time accept any wolf with disabilities, and basically they considered that any wolf pup that had some kind of major disability would be considered not useful to the pack or even considered a curse, and that they have to be killed. That is actually really dark when you think about it. And yeah, basically, Daria's mom died trying to protect her pup, which her pup did manage to escape. She was then taken care of by some creatures or animals, and that place would be later known as Shadow Forest. And we time skip to where we are in this timeline now. And basically, Lily was arranging a field trip for all of the Omega pups to visit around Shadow Forest. And Runt found out that there is something strange going on around that forest and notices some paranormal activity with a wolf ghost and that kind of thing. And basically, Runt finds out about Daria, and he tries to help her to get back into her pack and also find out where her mother is, because she has no idea that her mom passed away. And yeah, that is basically the storyline of this movie. In my opinion, this one had a very intriguing storyline, and I was interested. This was the point where I thought Alpha and Omega were going to skyrocket after this, because I was really impressed with how they handled things in this movie. This is the first movie, in my opinion, on this list where I really felt like they put in the effort into making this one. And this is something I 100% would watch again. He said, it's very intriguing, very interesting. The comedy is still great. We gotta mention that part. And it was also great character development for Runt, which is also why Runt in this movie became my favorite wolf pup from Kate and Humphrey's Three Pups. And yeah, this movie was very entertaining, very interesting, and definitely one I would be keeping on my DVD shelf and wouldn't mind, and I would be interested in giving a rewatch. But with that being said, in my opinion, there are still two movies on this list that I enjoyed a little bit more than this movie. Because now we're going to number 2, my second most favorite Alpha and Omega movie on this list. And in my opinion, this is an Alpha and Omega movie that I'm very surprised that a lot of people out there hate, because this is one that I found to be one of the most enjoyable in the entire series, and I'm very surprised this is put low in a lot of people's lists. But I'm gonna be giving it the respect it deserves, because in second place for my second favorite Alpha and Omega movie, I am going for Alpha and Omega 5 Family Vacation. Now, in my opinion, this is one of the most overhated and underrated Alpha and Omega movies that I have seen for a while. Like, seriously, I do not understand the level of hate towards this movie. He said that, I will say there are some problems within the plot hole, and ideally I might have put this back in number 3 instead of The Legend of the Sawtooth Cave. But I really enjoyed this one. This one was, as I said, this isn't really necessarily a list on who I think made the best overall movie. It's just which ones did I enjoy the most. And if I'm being honest, this is the one that I enjoyed the most from out of all of the sequels. But anyway, what the plot of this movie is Kate, Humphrey, and their three pups are going on a quote-unquote family vacation to try to get to Alfred Creek Falls. And the pups wanted to bring some of their friends along, but Kate and Humphrey said they can't really do that because it's of course a family vacation. But on their way to Alfred Creek Falls, they found out that the wolf trappers have come back, and basically they're back to trapping wolves and relocating them from one place to another. So but they do not capture wolves that are outside the border or at the mountains. Outside the border is where Alfred Creek Falls is, but to get through it, they have to first get to Idaho to make sure that they wouldn't be captured by the trappers. But to their surprise, their friends actually do come and help them out against the wolf trappers and basically join them along for the ride. Oh, and in case you guys didn't know, the friends that they brought along were Brent, Agnes, Fleet, Fran, and Frida. Fran and Frida were the two porcupines that showed up in the fourth Alpha and Omega movie as well. Two out of the three porcupines that helped Daria. So yeah, like I said, this might not be the best movie plot-wise, but I think everything else makes up for it. And I will say, I've seen quite a few people complain that this movie had quite a few flashbacks and basically said it seemed like the writers were trying to kill as much time as possible with all these flashbacks. And while I agree maybe the flashbacks were a little bit too excessive, like I said, it still didn't matter to me because I really enjoyed it. The comedy in here was top notch. Like, this is probably, in my opinion, the best level of comedy that we got from the entire franchise. I was absolutely laughing my eyes off. It was hilarious. I really loved what they did with the humor in this one. And of course, the characters' personalities, the variety in character personalities was very entertaining. We also got to see a few old characters from the first movie make a return, like Debbie. And yeah, overall, I think it was a very fun movie, which is exactly how I would describe it. Like I said, may not be the best in terms of plot and storyline, but the entertainment in the comedy for that completely makes up for it. And in my opinion, the good stuff in this movie way outweighs the bad. And yeah, that's why I've decided to put this number 2 on my list. But of course, realistically, there is only one movie that could really be number 1. There is no other, like, in my opinion, there is no other Alpha and Omega movie that even came close to this one. It had absolutely hilarious comedy. The storyline was actually pretty good, and the animation quality was definitely at its best here. And this was also, of course, the only movie in this franchise that actually lasted an hour and a half long. Because, of course, who else, which movie I'm talking about? I'm talking about none other than the OG Alpha and Omega movie. The very first movie we got in this franchise. Now, as I said, for this Alpha and Omega movie, no other Alpha and Omega movies come close to this. I mean, this is where I felt like the writers gave the absolute utmost effort into. And despite what some critics say about this, I genuinely think this is a great movie. This is one I could watch over and over again and never get bored of being entertained. This was absolutely great. The characters that were in this, Winston, Eve, Tony, Garth, and the main characters, Kate and Humphrey, all had great personalities and were very fun. And same could be said for the two birds, Marcel and Patty. Is it like the amount of great characters we had in this first movie was very nice to see. And the soundtrack, oh my goodness, the soundtrack of this movie absolutely slaps. It slaps hard. Is it like it? I could listen to especially Kate and Humphrey's howling solo for hours and never get bored from it. So basically, what the plot of this movie was is that Kate was deemed to be the future leader of the pack as Winston and Eve were about to retire from their positions from the Western pack. But of course, the Eastern pack, which is where Tony is a part of, they're having a problem with lack of food. And basically, they believe the only way that they could solve this problem is to unite the two packs by having Winston's daughter, Kate, and Tony's son, Garth, to marry and unite the packs. And I will say, Kate and Humphrey, they have been childhood friends for a long time, and Humphrey has always had a crush on her, even when they were young. But there is a law within the pack that Omegas can't date or marry alphas, and they can only be like alpha with alpha and omega with omega. So yeah, that was basically the custom of that pack. But after Kate and Garth's first meeting didn't go too well, and Humphrey was making fun of Kate. Kate and Humphrey got captured by wolf trappers and were taken all the way to Idaho, where they met Marcel and Patty. And basically, they have to try to get back to where they are, which is Jasper Park in Canada. They had to try to get their way back before the two wolf packs, the Western Wolves and the Eastern Wolves, end up having a war with each other. So yeah, that is basically the plot of this movie. And like I said, the character development, humor, character interactions and personality, the soundtrack, in my opinion, were all great. I don't care what anyone says that it has a few problems. All Alpha and Omega movies in this franchise have a few problems here and there. But this was by far their best one, and no other Alpha and Omega movie came even close to topping this. And in my opinion, I do rank it as one of my favorite animated movies. But yeah, so that is it. That is my final ranking on all 8 of these Alpha and Omega movies. And if you guys enjoyed this video, I've been recording for over 50 minutes. I need to rest my voice. My throat's becoming a little bit itchy, he said. But anyway, guys, I hope you do enjoyed this video. And if you did, be sure to hit that like button down below. And if you're new to my channel, hit that subscribe button if you want more videos. And I'll see you all in the next one. Take care, everybody. Sorry this is a long video, but yeah, I had to really go in depth about this. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Peace.